Okay. Hello, beautiful people. So this is the Inspiration Trilogy podcast, and my name is Marika Gare. So this is a platform to inspire, encourage, and empower women across the globe to be better versions of themselves and to just have that wisdom to live a purposeful life. So today's guest is Adriana Aquina from Aquina's Cup of Therapy. Hi, how are you?
I'm good. Very excited to be here. I love everything that you're doing, empowering us to talk about mental health and raising awareness. So I'm more than excited.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. Look, it's such an important subject. For those of you who may not be aware, so you are based in Tucson, Arizona, in the US, and you're a mental health professional. So tell us a little bit more about you, your journey, and how you got to where you are.
Yeah, so I just started Aquina's Cup of Therapy here, like you said, in Tucson, Arizona. I started in March, and I've been kind of trying to figure out how to develop it in mental health. I do have over 10 years of experience in mental health. My journey started when I graduated in high school. I changed my major like I don't know how many times until I got to psychology. Yeah, I was like, I think I went through like nursing, physiology, like all these different majors.
It's so hard.
And slowly I ended up like, yes, trying to figure out what to do. And then somehow I ended in philosophy. And I was in love with the philosophy classes.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait, what? But then I was like, how am I going to put that into a career unless I become a professor? And all these things started to kind of make me doubt the career in philosophy. And then I took my psychology class and I was in love with it. So then life happened. I became a mom unexpectedly. I was not planning on it, and it put a pause in my career. And it took me 10 years to graduate to get my bachelor's. But in those 10 years, I was on and off trying to figure out how to balance family life, work, a little bit of everything.
Yeah, and it is a juggle, right? Yeah.
It is so hard to try to have it all.
It is, and motherhood as well, when you sort of, if you weren't expecting, and even just your first child, it's just life changing, and it takes time to kind of settle into that swing of things, and everything else kind of comes when it's ready.
Yeah, and I experienced postpartum depression with my second one.
Yeah.
To the point where I was thinking about suicide, where I couldn't think outside of myself. Like, I think my kids will be better off without me, they'll be fine without me. All those intrusive thoughts were getting so dark, so fast.
It just consumes you.
Yeah. And at that point, even though I had taken psychology classes and had done all this work, I still didn't feel like I needed the help. I didn't understand how bad it was. It was just too much. And I still was in denial. I was like, I got it. This is, I'll be fine. I'll pass.
Yeah.
It's just the hormones, being a new mom.
And that's the kind of mindset that a lot of us have, isn't it? That it's, oh, I'm going to be okay. Tomorrow will be a better day. And that's a great, I guess, in some ways it can be good to sort of, have that positive thought. But you need to sort of, I guess, acknowledge and recognize at what point it doesn't change where you need to reach out. So
yeah, it was at that point, like, I'm like, when my husband kept telling me, you need help, and I wasn't that like, no, I don't, you need help. It was like, you go get the help, I'm fine, tomorrow will be better, and not to the point where I was attempting,
Oh, really?
Yeah, it got to that point where it was hard. It was hard for me to reach out for help. It was hard for me to accept there was something. And I had people telling me, but you have a degree in psychology. You have worked in the mental health world. How are you not dealing with this? And I was in that mindset of like, that's true. I should know better. you know,
Yeah.
and there was all this stigma around me because I had the education, because I knew better, because I had the resources. I shouldn't be experiencing it.
But that probably
So
gave you a
then,
bit more anxiety about reaching out, do you think, as well, because of that? Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot of that stigma, like, okay, if I have this background in mental health, right, and but I'm going through depression, then I should be able to manage it. What are other professionals going to think of me if I am a professional seeking out for help, you know?
Yeah.
And this wasn't too far out. This was back like in 2013, 2014. It was where it started to, I'm sorry, it started to kind of become a thing, right? To raise awareness of mental
Yeah.
health. It
Yeah.
wasn't that known. It wasn't such a thing. So for
So
me, it
many
was like,
women
I need the help.
experience it after children as well, and it's just not talked about. It's, you kind of want to, you don't want to admit that you're not coping as a mum, and it's very hard for us to really reach out, and but it is so common. It's just, yeah, it's a topic that really needs more awareness.
Yeah. So after experiencing that, I decided to go back to school to do my master's. My husband helped me out to reach out for help. When I finally talked to a psychologist, she was like, no, you're fine. You need the help. It's okay. Like,
Yeah.
you know, you can take medication and be a professional and be a mom, and you're in the human experience. You don't
Yeah.
have to struggle with this. And I remember that day I had a breakdown because I was like, it's okay for me to not be okay. It was a
Yeah.
moment of like something switched in my brain. And
Yeah.
it was eye-opening for me and very impactful at that time.
Wow. So what kind of, so you're saying you, how did you overcome that? So there was an element of, using medications, but did you do meditation or spiritual work, or what else did you do within yourself to kind of help progress through that?
Yeah, so I did therapy. I did counseling sessions and with antidepressants as well.
Yeah.
At some point, I started, something in my brain just kind of started to change, right? Those chemicals, that imbalance kind of started to balance out, and life started
Mm.
to make sense again. I started to feel better, and in that journey, because my counselor was like, well, what do you need? Do you need to would you like to go on a retreat? How can we support you any further, right?
Yeah.
And at that point I was like, I want to go back to school. I want to help people through this too. I want
Yeah.
to be able to support women. I want to be able to support kids. I want to be able to support anybody that just crosses my path, and tell them that it's okay. You know,
Yeah.
and that was my inspiration behind the company, was that I want to build that safe space where anybody can just reach out and be able to be okay and have that safe space.
Yeah.
So that's how I got to building my company.
Oh, that's such an incredibly inspiring story. Like, I know how challenging it is. I have suffered depression myself at times when my brother passed away, and I've had PTSD after a major car accident. So where my anxiety was so bad, I couldn't leave the house. Just the thought of walking out that door. I remember
Mhm.
pacing up and down the house one day for about 2 hours, just trying to talk myself into it. You're okay. You're just going to go out. And then I just burst into tears, and that was it. And I didn't go, but that was really the point where I realized that things were as bad as what they were. I was trying to put myself back into a normal life, and this was about 3 months after my accident.
Wow.
But little things like that. So before that, sometimes it can just consume you, and you get in this little bubble, and you talk to yourself, you'll be
Mhm.
okay, you'll be okay. But yeah, there is a point where you need to kind of reach out. And there's different sorts of depression as well. So my understanding is it can be sort of your perception, the way that you view things, that you can sort of go down that spiral. But there's also chemical imbalances. So some forms of depression, you need to, I guess, rejuvenate those imbalances. So how can you explain the differences of those to people, I guess?
That's interesting you mentioned that, because my whole workshop series that I have going on right now is based on perception and how it impacts our mental health. And the first one was trying to understand what is perception. And we understand that perception is everything, right? It's how we experience the world. How do we see it? How do we feel it? How do we smell it? Yeah. So it goes much deeper into understanding body language, emotions, not only ourselves, but other people too. So how do we receive that, right? So with how we perceive is how our brain starts to make those connections. And that's how we start making those chemicals in our brains, right? So if you're in an environment that's always negative, then you're going to perceive the world as always negative, and your brain is going to start to make those connections. So it is a huge impact in the mental health. So in the first session, I was talking about the interrupted thought. The interrupted thought is known as like, oh, I'm going to go do this in the kitchen. Then you go to the kitchen and then you forget what it is. You were there for minutes.
Yeah.
In which it happens to all of us.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure the study that I found, but I found it fascinating because it was talking about the interrupted thought and using it to reorganize those chemical balance and those connections. Or when you're having that negative thought and somebody comes and tells you like a funny thing, like the one I used was, I remember I was having an anxiety attack. And before I went into a meeting and I couldn't breathe. And I was like, there's no way I can do this meeting. I cannot go into that meeting. And my friend just randomly said, hey, did you know that pandas can't eat bamboo, but they eat them anyway? And I was like, what? I was like, what are you talking about? Can you see I'm having a panic attack over here? And she's like, yeah, look it up. And I was just like, all I could think was like, that is not true. And I was like on TikTok, like, of course TikTok doesn't lie. They're going to tell me, right? And then suddenly she was like, oh, hey, it's time to go into the meeting. Let's go. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I just went in and I just walked in and I was like, what is this? And then I was researching on like, what is the interrupted thought? I went more into details on like, on researching on what is the interrupted thought. And the interrupted thought interrupts that path, that connection of negative thinking into, so it's going the route and then it goes like, oh, and now we're going this way and we're going to start making a different connection. So your brain kind of starts to rebuild that chemical balance.
Yeah.
So I thought that was fascinating. I was
that
like,
I noticed
there's not a lot. I researched, there's not a lot out there, and I really think that should be a thing.
It's something I'll be Googling.
I recommend it, definitely.
Yeah. So look, I'm just sort of moving out, I guess, on a broader subject as well. So, you know, obviously, there's a lot of mental health concerns, I guess, generally in society, like you said, with the postpartum depression, and people have anxiety and other things that sort of challenging situations that so they might experience, you know, depression and whatnot. So, and obviously after COVID, all of those things were elevated worldwide. And now with the economic crisis, I'm not sure what it's like necessarily on the ground in the US, but I know here in Australia, you know, they're losing their employment, they're losing their homes. There's a lot of homelessness. People can't afford medications and basic care for themselves, which is causing great amounts of anxiety and depression, and, you know, the risk of suicidal rates increasing. So, I mean, how people who are experiencing, I guess, really challenging situations, what would be your advice where can they start to get that calmness within themselves to kind of, other than interrupted thought, but I guess on a day-to-day thing. So what tips can you provide?
Yeah, that's a lot, you know, with with especially with COVID on its own, right?
Yep.
We have seen the impact, especially in youth. It has been so much. And I think that's another area we need to address. But
yeah.
Now adding all these factors, right, of the economy, the homelessness, like all these societal issues that are so big and can be so overwhelming and also intimidating, you know, for somebody who's experiencing that, or even saying, hey, I'm going to lose my house, I need help.
And I think a lot of people weren't expecting this as kind of the back end following on from COVID, all these long-term sort of effects carrying on from it. I think so. It's taken a lot of people by surprise on how things have changed so dramatically as well. But yeah,
I think the first thing would be trying to find that person that you feel comfortable with, that you trust. If it's not a person, maybe reaching out to an agency that you think you'll be able to build that rapport and that connection with. Because having that connection and that rapport of non-judgmental, right, that environment where you're safe and they're not going to judge you, but they're there to help you. I think that's very important when seeking that kind of help or support.
Knowing you're not alone.
But yeah, exactly. But there's so many agencies that are just kind of like housing agencies, right? That not all of them, of course, but some that have some staff that are just tired of hearing all this and could be like, okay, next, nice, here's the paperwork, fill it out.
It's kind of just a number,
Yeah, but building that environment, and if you find a company, a person that's willing to support you through that process, you're gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. You don't have to do it alone. And that's the big message here, is knowing that you don't have to do it alone. You're not alone. There's always somebody who's willing to be there for you. But how do we deal with those emotions meanwhile, right? Finding that comfort and that peace. One is trying to find some sort of organization in our life, something that we can find control over. Like if we can just have control over the next minute of me just sitting here and taking a breath, that'll bring you some sort of, okay, I can control this. I can control my body. I can control my emotions, and bring that sort of centeredness to be able to take the next step. And sometimes all you need to do is take it minute by minute, and that's fine.
And that's what they say is like calming yourself down, or just taking a breath and slowing your breathing down. It really calms you down to the core. And so things like meditation, that's something that I've used throughout my time and my anxiety. And I find it's been monumental in helping me sort of navigate through these challenging thoughts and times. And just I'm so much calmer. And I mean, before, a little bit short-tempered and things like that when you're under a lot of stress. And it's incredible how much of an effect it can have on you. So and so
because everything's
no, you keep going.
I'm sorry. that everything's interconnected. So if you're okay mentally, you're gonna be okay physically, and vice versa. So
the power of the mind. I mean, if we can, I talk about this because I've done some, written some, co-authored some books and stuff in the past. So the power of the mind is so strong. So you can actually put yourself into like a fight or flight mode from a memory. You can put yourself into severe anxiety and panic attacks because the way that you're thinking and what you're thinking of. But on the reverse effect, it can do the same. So it's just a matter of acknowledging that, understanding it, and taking that step back to kind of reverse the process. So what I'd really like to touch on as well, so you do a lot of courses. For anyone who wants to have a look on your website, we'll talk about that later, and I'll put the links down below. So tell us about the courses that you offer that people can access.
So I'm doing workshops. I'm still kind of, since I'm fairly new in the business world, I'm trying to see how to structure things. But for me, the mental health is so big. It's everything.
Yeah.
So I like to structure my workshops on a topic. So I'm going to do 6 different workshops on one topic because there's so much to talk about.
Yeah.
One topic such as perception, depression, anxiety, that I can't cover it all in one workshop.
Yeah.
So I like to break it down to talk about different things so people have an opportunity to connect with it in a different ways because everybody learns differently and can get one thing out of one workshop that they didn't get in another workshop.
Yeah.
So that's very important to me. I also do mental health coaching. I do all ages because I like to, like I told you earlier, if I can cover everybody, I will.
And it's so important because it does affect everyone from all different ages. And there's a lot of youth as well at the moment experiencing, a greater surge in depression and anxiety. So it's important that we sort of come together and look after everybody. So what's the best way for everybody to contact you?
So anyway, all my information is out there. I got Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, website, LinkedIn, text, call, email. I got it all.
So what do they can look up your name, Adriana Aquina, I guess through the channels, or Aquina's Cup of Therapy. So like I said before, we will put the links and everything down below so people can contact you at any point. So just sort of finishing up on things. So what would be one quote that you use to motivate you on a daily basis? What's your favorite quote?
My favorite quote is, you're not alone. That's the biggest one for me. And you're going to see it a lot on my website and my workshops. And you're enough. Because we forget that a lot of times. And I also have merchandise products that carry mental health messages. And this one is a mental health series because of September being the suicide prevention month. Yeah. So this products focus a lot on carrying that message on you're enough, I'm enough, and you have to believe it. Yeah. And know it, because it's important that you believe it, but you also know it, that you are enough and you're worthy. So those two always get me through the day. When I'm having imposter syndrome, I'm like, no, I'm enough. I got this. I'm not alone. If I need help after my experience with depression, knowing that I'm not alone has been a huge one. Knowing that I can reach out and there's actual people that are going to help me.
Yeah, don't be afraid to reach out. And look, another thing is I'll also put links to different organisations and mental health agencies that can help anyone who might be struggling or having suicidal thoughts. So just make sure that you reach out, and like you said, you are enough and you are worthy. So look, thank you so much for talking to us today. It's such an incredible topic. I could talk for hours about this stuff, but we do sort of have a time frame. So look, once again, thank you. I think you've got an incredible journey and you've got so much experience and wisdom that you can provide for others, and just give them that empowerment and knowing that you yourself have experienced, depression on that sort of level. So thank you so much. I hope everyone out there has enjoyed today's chat, and look forward to giving you some more episodes in the future on some really interesting topics. So thanks for listening. Bye.
Thank you for having me. Bye.